Racist customer insults black chef, then gets a surprise visit from health inspectors. What happens when a racist customer meets his match? As the bell above the door jingled, signaling the arrival of a new patron, the atmosphere in the cozy restaurant shifted slightly. A well-dressed man stepped inside, exuding an air of entitlement that was hard to ignore. With a sharp suit and an arrogant smirk, he surveyed the room, his gaze lingering on the staff with an air of condescension. The warm, inviting ambience of the restaurant clashed with his cold demeanor, creating an immediate tension that felt palpable to those seated nearby. This was not just any customer. He was the type who believed that money granted him a license to demean others. He strolled past the tables, barely acknowledging the friendly greetings from the servers. Instead, he focused his attention on the chef, a talented black man who had poured his heart and soul into the dishes that had earned the restaurant its reputation. The chef, known for his exceptional culinary skills and kind nature, was busy preparing a special order in the open kitchen. The sounds of sizzling pans and the rich aromas wafting through the air created a sensory delight for the diners. The chef, absorbed in his work, had little idea of the storm about to brew in his restaurant. As the customer approached the counter, he leaned against it, crossing his arms with an air of superiority. His gaze was piercing, scrutinizing every detail of the kitchen. With a dismissive wave of his hand, he called out to the chef, who looked up, a polite smile still on his face, ready to greet yet another customer. But the man had other plans. "Hey, chef," he barked, his tone dripping with disdain. "Do you even know how to cook? I've tasted better food from a fast food joint." The words hung in the air, charged with malice and prejudice, shocking the surrounding diners into silence. The insult was not merely a critique of the food, it was an attack on the chef's very identity and professionalism. The chef's smile faltered for a brief moment, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. It was as if the warmth of the restaurant had been snuffed out by the harshness of the customer's words. Yet, he took a deep breath, steeling himself against the sting of the insult. He was no stranger to discrimination, having faced it throughout his career, but each incident felt like a fresh wound. Around him, other diners began to shift uncomfortably in their seats, casting wary glances at the unfolding scene. Some whispered to each other, unsure of how to respond to the blatant racism being displayed in what was meant to be a welcoming environment. The chef knew he had to choose his next words carefully, balancing his professionalism with the need to stand up for himself. In that moment, the restaurant seemed to hold its breath. The tension was palpable as everyone waited to see how the chef would respond to this brazen attack on his character. Little did the arrogant customer know that this encounter would not end in silence or submission. It was only the beginning of a dramatic confrontation that would leave everyone stunned. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted dramatically, the air thick with tension as the chef stood in front of the customer, grappling with the weight of the insult just hurled at him. He had spent years honing his skills, pouring his passion into every dish, and now, faced with the arrogant disdain of this customer, he felt a rush of emotions coursing through him. The hurt was undeniable, a stark reminder of the prejudice that still permeated society. "Do you even belong in this kitchen?" the customer sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. The chef's heart raced, and for a fleeting moment he was taken aback. It was an all-too-familiar feeling, being belittled and disrespected in a space he had worked hard to cultivate. He had encountered discriminatory remarks before, but each one still stung as if it were the first. This was not just about the words, it was an assault on his identity, his passion, and his hard-earned place in the culinary world. With determination rising within him, the chef took a steadying breath, reminding himself of the countless hours spent perfecting his craft. "I'm here because I've worked hard to be here," he responded, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "My food speaks for itself, and I don't need to prove anything to you." There was strength in his words, reflecting the pride he had in his cooking and the dedication he had shown throughout his career. As the chef held his ground, the restaurant began to pulse with the reactions of the other diners, creating a palpable tension in the air. People shifted in their seats, eyes darting between the chef and the customer. A young woman seated at a nearby table, who had been enjoying her meal moments before, exchanged a concerned glance with her companion. "Did you hear what he just said?" she whispered, disbelief evident in her voice. The gravity of the moment was not lost on her. She recognized the blatant racism unfolding before her eyes. Some diners nodded in agreement, their expressions mirroring the shock and indignation felt by the chef. A middle-aged man, clearly irritated by the situation, stood up from his table, ready to confront the arrogant customer. However, another diner, a woman sitting next to him, quickly placed a hand on his arm, urging him to remain seated. "Let him handle it," she murmured, her eyes reflecting a mixture of empathy and concern for the chef. At a table in the back, a group of friends who had been laughing and enjoying their time suddenly fell silent, their previous joviality replaced by concern. One of them, a young black man, felt the weight of the chef's struggle keenly. "This is unacceptable," he muttered, standing up. "Somebody needs to say something." His heart raced with the urgency of the moment, fueled by the injustice unfolding before him. The chef, feeling the eyes of the diners upon him, stood taller. He could sense the support building around him, yet the customer seemed unfazed, wearing an arrogant smirk that suggested he enjoyed the attention. "Look, if you can't take the heat, maybe you should find another job," he retorted, trying to deflect the growing wave of support for the chef. But the arrogance in his voice was becoming a shield that was cracking under the weight of the collective disapproval from the restaurant patrons. In that tense moment, the chef prepared to defend his dignity and profession. "I'm not here to take your disrespect," he declared, determination flooding his veins. "I deserve to be treated with dignity, just like anyone else in this restaurant." His words reverberated in the silence, a powerful declaration that resonated with the other diners. Just then, the young woman who had been whispering to her companion finally found her voice. "You should be ashamed of yourself. No one deserves to be treated that way," she said, her voice rising above the tension, her gaze fierce as it locked onto the customers with unwavering conviction. The courage she exhibited inspired others around her to join in. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, emboldening those who had previously remained silent. The middle-aged man who had stood up earlier now took a step forward, his expression resolute. "We're all here to enjoy a meal, not witness this kind of behavior. This is not right," he added, his voice strong and steady. The chef could feel a shift in the atmosphere, a palpable energy of solidarity surrounding him. Diners began to voice their support, creating a chorus of defiance against the racism displayed by the customer. As the chef looked around, he felt a swell of gratitude. He was not alone in this battle. The people in the restaurant stood with him, united against discrimination. The previously muted sounds of clinking glasses and quiet conversation were replaced by a buzz of voices rallying behind the chef, creating a newfound energy in the room. The chef, fueled by the support of the patrons, realized that this was his moment to not only defend himself but also to stand as a symbol of resilience against racism. "Your words don't define me," he proclaimed, his voice rising above the noise, resonating with the crowd. "I am proud of who I am and what I do. I refuse to let your ignorance diminish my passion." The conviction in his voice was undeniable, and it struck a chord with those listening. The customer, caught off guard by the sudden unity of the diners, felt the walls closing in on him. His smirk faltered as he realized that the support for the chef was growing stronger by the second. The arrogance that had previously characterized his demeanor began to wane as he found himself surrounded by a crowd unwilling to accept his prejudiced views. In this moment of confrontation, the tension in the restaurant reached its peak. The stage was set for a dramatic clash, one that would not only challenge the customer's arrogance but also illuminate the resilience of the chef in the face of bigotry. Little did they know that this encounter would not end quietly. It was merely the beginning of a confrontation that would lead to unexpected consequences. The atmosphere in the restaurant had reached a boiling point, and the tension was palpable as the chef stood firm, refusing to let the customer's vitriol go unchallenged. The growing support from the diners enveloped him like a warm blanket, fueling his resolve. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, heightening his senses and sharpening his focus as he prepared to confront the arrogant man who dared to belittle him. With a deep breath, the chef stepped forward, standing tall and proud. "You think you can walk in here and disrespect me just because you have money?" he declared, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "You may have come here to eat, But that doesn't give you the right to treat anyone, especially not me, with such disdain. I'm a chef who has worked tirelessly to create a welcoming environment for everyone, and I won't allow you to tarnish that with your ignorance." The room was silent as the other diners leaned in, their eyes wide with anticipation. They could feel the weight of the moment, recognizing that this was more than just a confrontation between a customer and a chef. It was a battle against discrimination, a fight for respect and dignity. The chef's words resonated deeply, and he could see the flicker of support in the eyes of those around him. In that instant, the arrogant customer, caught off guard by the chef's boldness, shifted uncomfortably. His confidence began to waver as the murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, echoing the chef's sentiments. Yet, rather than retreating or showing remorse, the customer's anger flared up, transforming his shock into aggression. "Oh, please," he scoffed, attempting to regain control of the situation. "You think you can just talk to me like that? You're just a cook, not some kind of celebrity chef. I could have you fired with one phone call. You're nothing without my business." His voice rose, dripping with venom, as he leaned closer to the chef, attempting to intimidate him. The chef remained unwavering, the fire in his belly igniting further as he met the customer's glare with unwavering determination. "You may think you have power here, but let me remind you that I am the one creating the food that brings people together. I am the heart of this restaurant, and I will not let you take that away from me." The diners around them began to murmur again, some nodding in agreement with the chef's words, while others cast incredulous glances at the customer. A young woman in the corner raised her voice. "You don't own this place just because you have money. You need to show some basic human decency." Her words sparked a wave of support, emboldening others to join in. "Yeah," another diner shouted. "We all come here to enjoy good food and good company. We shouldn't have to tolerate your attitude." The chorus of voices grew, creating an atmosphere of solidarity that engulfed the restaurant. The customer, realizing he was losing the crowd, became increasingly agitated. His face flushed with rage as he turned to the diners. "You don't know who you're messing with," he shouted, the anger boiling over. "I'll have you all kicked out of here. I'll have this place shut down. I have connections, and I won't hesitate to use them." His voice echoed through the restaurant, dripping with threats and bravado, but the crowd only grew more defiant. "Go ahead. We're not afraid of you," a man shouted back, rising from his seat. "You think you can bully people into submission? This is not your playground." The man's words galvanized the other diners, who began to stand in solidarity with the chef. Feeling the strength of the moment, the chef raised his hand, calling for calm. "Everyone please," he urged, though his voice was firm. "This is my moment to confront this disrespect, and I appreciate your support. But let's not stoop to his level." The chef turned his attention back to the customer, his expression unwavering. "You need to understand that your behavior has consequences, and you cannot treat people this way without facing repercussions." The customer, now fully enraged, crossed the line further. "You think this is over? I'll make sure you regret ever standing up to me. You'll be out of a job before the week is over. I'll ruin you." His threats hung in the air, heavy with malice and hostility, but the chef stood his ground, unfazed by the aggression. "Let me be clear," the chef said, his voice steady and resolute. "I will not be intimidated by your threats. I have worked too hard to let someone like you diminish my worth. I've faced challenges throughout my life, and this is just another moment where I have to stand up for myself. Your words will not silence me, nor will they define who I am." The room erupted in applause, a powerful testament to the solidarity that had built around the chef. The customers, emboldened by his courage, clapped and cheered, their voices ringing out in support. "We've got your back," someone shouted, and the momentum continued to build. Feeling the collective strength of the patrons, the chef took a moment to scan the room. Their expressions reflected pride, anger, and solidarity. He had become their champion in this moment, representing not just himself but all those who had ever faced discrimination or disrespect in their lives. But the customer, now feeling cornered and exposed, lashed out one final time. "You think this is over? You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of place this is. You'll see." With those words, he stormed out of the restaurant, leaving behind an air of disbelief and exhilaration. As the door slammed shut behind him, a sense of relief washed over the crowd. The chef took a moment to breathe, letting the tension seep from his body. He felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the support he had received, knowing that this moment would resonate far beyond the walls of the restaurant. "I want to thank each and every one of you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "It's not easy to stand up against prejudice, but together, we can create an environment where everyone is treated with respect and dignity." The applause erupted again, echoing through the restaurant, a powerful reminder of the strength that lay in unity. With the tension now dissipated, the atmosphere transformed from one of hostility to celebration. Diners exchanged stories of their own experiences with discrimination, reinforcing the sense of community that had emerged in the face of adversity. The chef felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that he had not only defended his worth but had also inspired others to stand up against injustice. Little did they know, this encounter would spark further discussions about respect, equality, and the importance of addressing discrimination in all its forms. The chef had not just faced a difficult situation, he had ignited a movement within his own restaurant, fostering a culture of support and solidarity that would last long after the incident faded into memory. As the evening wore on, the chef returned to his kitchen, his heart full and his spirits soaring. He had faced down prejudice and emerged victorious, not just for himself but for everyone who had ever felt marginalized or disrespected. In that moment, he realized that he was not just a chef, he was a voice for change, a beacon of hope in a world that sometimes seemed all too dark. As the applause for the chef began to die down, a palpable sense of triumph hung in the air, with the restaurant buzzing from the confrontation that had just taken place. Patrons exchanged knowing smiles and animated discussions, and the energy felt electric. The chef, feeling a renewed sense of purpose, took a moment to soak in the support from those around him. It had been a trying evening, but he had stood his ground against the disrespect, and for that he felt a deep sense of pride. But just as the restaurant seemed to return to a sense of normalcy, the front door swung open again, this time with a purpose. The chef turned to see a group of health inspectors entering the restaurant, their presence immediately drawing the attention of the diners and the kitchen staff. Clad in crisp uniforms with badges prominently displayed, they exuded authority. The atmosphere shifted once more, the air thick with curiosity as the inspectors surveyed the scene. "Excuse us, everyone," the lead inspector announced, stepping forward and addressing the room. "We need to speak with the owner and the chef immediately." Their tone was serious, and the sudden turn of events caused the patrons to exchange bewildered glances. The moment felt surreal, and a hush fell over the crowd as they awaited further explanation. The chef, still processing the earlier confrontation, instinctively stepped forward, wiping his hands on his apron as he prepared to address the inspectors. "I'm the chef here. What seems to be the issue?" His heart raced. He had worked tirelessly to maintain the standards of his kitchen and ensure that every dish served was prepared with the utmost care and hygiene. The lead inspector's gaze shifted towards the arrogant customer, who had been watching the unfolding scene with a mix of annoyance and disbelief. "We have received complaints regarding your behavior in establishments like this one," the inspector stated, their voice steady and unyielding. "We're here to ensure that all patrons are treated fairly and that no one is subjected to harassment or discrimination." The customer's face paled, and his bravado quickly dissipated. "What? This is absurd," he sputtered, clearly taken aback by the inspector's words. "I'm a paying customer. You can't just come in here and accuse me of anything. I have rights." He gestured wildly, trying to regain his footing, but the inspectors remained unfazed. The lead inspector continued, "Your rights as a customer do not extend to harassing staff or other diners. We take these allegations seriously, and it's important that we address any form of discrimination or hostile behavior." The inspector's words were resolute, leaving little room for argument. Around the restaurant, whispers of surprise rippled through the crowd. The diners, who had previously rallied in support of the chef, exchanged knowing glances, recognizing that the unfolding situation had taken an unexpected turn. They leaned in closer, eager to witness how this drama would play out, their earlier solidarity now a shield against the customer's arrogance. The chef couldn't help but feel a rush of vindication as the inspectors addressed the very behavior that had just transpired. "This isn't about what I'm serving, it's about the treatment I receive while I do my job," he interjected, his voice rising above the growing murmurs. "I'm here to create a welcoming environment, and no one should feel threatened or disrespected in this space." The inspectors nodded in agreement, clearly taking the chef's words to heart. "We're not here to make any judgments about the quality of the food or service. Our primary concern is ensuring a safe and respectful environment for everyone," the lead inspector clarified, their gaze piercing but fair. "We've had multiple reports regarding your previous conduct in other establishments, and this is a serious matter." The customer, now visibly sweating under the scrutiny, struggled to maintain his composure. "Those are lies. I'm a loyal customer. I've never done anything wrong," he protested, but his voice lacked the conviction it had carried earlier. The truth was evident. He was cornered, and the weight of the inspector's presence loomed large over him. The inspector turned to the other staff members, asking questions to piece together the entire story. "Can anyone here corroborate the events that just took place?" they inquired, scanning the room for anyone willing to share their experiences. One by one, diners began to raise their hands, eager to support the chef and highlight the disrespect they had witnessed. "I saw everything," said the young woman who had previously voiced her support for the chef. "He was rude and aggressive, and no one should be treated that way, especially not the chef who worked so hard." Her voice rang out with clarity, and the diners around her nodded in agreement. Another diner, the middle-aged man who had stood up earlier, added, "This isn't the first time I've seen this customer behave like this. It's unacceptable. He should be held accountable for his actions." The inspectors took notes, clearly paying attention to every word spoken. As more patrons shared their accounts, the weight of the customer's behavior became undeniable. It was a turning tide, and the chef felt a swell of pride as he witnessed the community rallying around him once more. "Thank you all for your cooperation," the lead inspector said, their tone appreciative yet firm. "It's crucial that we address these behaviors in order to maintain a safe environment for everyone. We will be conducting a thorough investigation into the reports surrounding this individual." The customer's demeanor shifted from angry to defensive, and he struggled to find a way out of the tightening noose. "This is ridiculous. You can't do this. I demand to speak to someone in charge," he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. He could feel the walls closing in, and panic started to set in. "Sir, we advise you to cooperate. It's in your best interest," the inspector warned, maintaining a calm yet authoritative demeanor. "If you choose to escalate this situation further, it could result in more severe consequences." The diners around them watched the scene unfold with a mix of disbelief and satisfaction, enjoying the unexpected twist of fate. The chef could hardly believe how the evening had turned. What had started as a challenging confrontation had blossomed into an unforeseen opportunity for justice. As the inspectors continued to question the customers and staff, the chef felt a newfound sense of strength and support. It was a reminder that in the face of adversity, standing up for what is right can create waves of change. The solidarity from the patrons had proven that discrimination would not be tolerated, and the chef had become the vessel for their collective voice. Amidst the ongoing investigation, the chef found himself reflecting on the events of the evening. He had started out feeling vulnerable, battling against ignorance and disrespect, but now he stood as a figure of resilience. The experience had transformed him, illuminating the power of community and the importance of standing up against discrimination. The health inspectors finished their interviews, making notes and assuring the patrons that they would be handling the situation with the seriousness it deserved. As they concluded their business, they turned to the chef once more. "We appreciate your courage in this matter. It's not easy to confront such behaviors, and you have our support," the lead inspector said, offering a nod of respect. With the inspector's presence, the atmosphere in the restaurant felt lighter, a sense of relief washing over the crowd. The diners began to clap again, this time in appreciation of the chef's bravery and the inspector's timely intervention. The applause was a wave of gratitude that swept through the room, uniting everyone in a shared experience. As the customer, now silent and defeated, slunk towards the exit, the chef felt a sense of closure wash over him. He had faced a difficult confrontation, but he had come out on the other side, not only intact but empowered by the support of his community. The moment served as a powerful reminder that change often begins with a single voice, and in this case, it had resonated far and wide. The evening progressed, and as the patrons resumed their meals, a celebratory atmosphere took hold. Conversations flowed freely, laughter punctuated the air, and the chef moved through the dining area, receiving compliments and words of encouragement from every table. He felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "Thank you for standing up for yourself," one diner said as he passed by, their eyes sparkling with admiration. "It took a lot of courage to confront him like that." The chef smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection with those around him. "It's important that we all stand together against disrespect," he replied, his voice sincere. "No one should ever feel diminished because of who they are." As the night came to a close, the chef reflected on the events that had transpired. He realized that while the confrontation had been difficult, it had sparked something powerful, a movement of solidarity that would extend beyond the walls of his restaurant. He felt an urge to use this experience as a catalyst for change, not just for himself but for others who might face similar challenges in their lives. With newfound purpose, he resolved to create a space where everyone felt valued and respected. He envisioned hosting community events, workshops, and discussions centered around inclusion and diversity, using his restaurant as a platform for dialogue and understanding. The experience had ignited a fire within him, a desire to be an advocate for change and to foster an environment that celebrated every individual's worth. As the last diners finished their meals and the restaurant began to empty, the chef looked around at the familiar space that had become a symbol of resilience and unity. He felt grateful for the journey that had brought him here and for the people who had stood by him. Through it all, the night had transformed from a moment of conflict into an opportunity for growth and healing. And as he locked up the restaurant for the night, he knew that the lessons learned would stay with him, guiding him toward a brighter future, not just for himself but for the community he cherished. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere in the restaurant remained charged with anticipation and curiosity. The health inspectors continued their investigation, carefully piecing together the events of the night. Patrons who had witnessed the confrontation eagerly shared their experiences, emphasizing the customer's rude and inappropriate behavior. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the lead inspector gathered everyone's attention. "We appreciate your patience during our inquiries. We have reviewed the statements and gathered the necessary information regarding the incidents tonight," they announced, their voice resonating with authority. The diners leaned in, eager to hear the outcome. "Based on the evidence presented, we must address the serious violations of health codes and public behavior standards that have come to light regarding this individual," the inspector continued, pointing a finger at the now silent customer. "It has been reported that you have a history of inappropriate behavior in various establishments, including instances of harassment and discrimination against staff and patrons. This kind of conduct is unacceptable and will not be tolerated." The customer's face flushed a deep crimson, an uncomfortable silence enveloping the room. The very air seemed to shift as diners exchanged knowing glances, a mix of disbelief and satisfaction painting their expressions. No one had expected such a swift turn of events, and yet here it was, the customer's arrogance swiftly unraveling before them. "Moreover," the inspector continued, "there have been multiple complaints regarding your failure to adhere to basic health standards in past visits to restaurants, including issues related to cleanliness and respect for the staff. This is not merely a matter of personal behavior, it affects the well-being of everyone who comes into contact with you in these establishments." Gasps rippled through the room, and the patrons who had previously rallied around the chef now felt a sense of vindication. The tables had truly turned. What had once been an attempt to belittle the chef had instead highlighted the customer's own deficiencies. The chef watched, a mix of emotions coursing through him. He had entered the evening feeling small and diminished, yet here he stood, the narrative shifting in his favor. The reality of the situation began to sink in. This wasn't just about his confrontation with the rude customer, it was about something much larger. It was a moment that showcased the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity, and the importance of community support. The inspectors continued to detail the customer's violations, explaining the ramifications of his actions. As a result of these findings, we are issuing a formal citation. You will be required to attend a hearing regarding your behavior, and there may be further consequences depending on the outcome of that hearing. The lead inspector's gaze remained steady, the authority in their voice unwavering. The customer, now visibly shaken, struggled to find his voice. "You can't do this to me. I demand to speak to someone in charge. This is an outrage." His words echoed in the restaurant, but they fell flat against the weight of the inspector's findings. The crowd was no longer on his side. The tide had turned completely. "Sir, the only thing you need to do is take responsibility for your actions," the inspector stated firmly. "You have had ample opportunities to correct your behavior, and now you must face the consequences. This is not just about tonight. This is a pattern of disrespect that cannot continue." The diners erupted in applause, their cheers filling the restaurant. They had witnessed the chef's bravery, and now they were witnessing the unraveling of a disrespectful individual who had attempted to wield his power over others. The energy in the room shifted from tense confrontation to celebratory empowerment, the atmosphere electric with a shared sense of justice. The chef felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had stood up for himself, and the community had rallied around him, transforming what had been a moment of humiliation into one of triumph. As the inspectors concluded their findings, they turned to the chef with a nod of respect. "Thank you for your courage in addressing this matter. It takes a strong individual to stand up against discrimination and disrespect." The chef felt a sense of pride swell within him. "Thank you for taking this seriously. It's vital that we create a welcoming environment for everyone, and no one should have to tolerate disrespect while doing their job." His voice resonated with conviction, and he knew that this was a moment he would carry with him for years to come. As the inspectors wrapped up their report and prepared to leave, the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted once more. Diners began to rise from their seats, offering congratulations and words of encouragement to the chef. "You were amazing," one woman exclaimed, her eyes shining with admiration. "Thank you for standing up for all of us." The chef beamed at the kind words, his heart swelling with gratitude. "It was a team effort," he replied, acknowledging the support that had poured in from all corners of the restaurant. "This community is what made it possible." With the crowd rallying around him, the chef felt a deep sense of connection to the patrons who had witnessed the evening's events unfold. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about a shared commitment to fostering an environment where everyone felt respected and valued. As the last of the diners trickled out of the restaurant, many lingered, unwilling to leave the sense of camaraderie that had developed throughout the evening. They exchanged stories, spoke of their experiences, and reflected on the importance of standing together against discrimination. Feeling inspired, the chef addressed the remaining patrons. "I'd like to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for your support tonight. This experience has shown me how vital it is to create a community where we all look out for one another. In that spirit, I want to open the floor for suggestions on how we can work together to make this space even more inclusive and welcoming." A lively discussion erupted, with patrons offering ideas for community events, workshops, and initiatives aimed at promoting understanding and respect. The chef took notes, energized by the ideas being shared and the enthusiasm in the room. He felt a renewed sense of purpose. His restaurant could be a beacon of hope and a platform for change. As the final patrons left, the chef reflected on the events of the night. The confrontation had been a catalyst for transformation, not just for him, but for everyone involved. He realized that standing up against disrespect had ignited a spark that could lead to meaningful change within his community. With the doors closed for the night, the chef began to clean up the kitchen, his mind racing with ideas for the future. He envisioned hosting community dinners where people could come together to share their stories and experiences, fostering understanding among diverse groups. He imagined workshops on inclusivity, where individuals could learn about the importance of respect and dignity in all interactions. As he scrubbed the last of the pots and pans, he felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. He had faced a difficult challenge, and though it had been daunting, he had emerged stronger and more determined than ever to make a difference. The night had started with conflict, but it had transformed into a celebration of community and resilience. The chef knew that moving forward he would use his platform to advocate for change, to stand up against discrimination, and to inspire others to do the same. With a final glance around the kitchen, he turned off the lights and locked the door, ready to face whatever the next day would bring. He carried with him not just the lessons learned from the confrontation but also the unwavering support of his community. Together, they would create a space that valued dignity and respect for all, proving that even in the face of adversity, standing together could lead to profound change. As the night drew to a close, the restaurant hummed with a newfound energy. The confrontation with the rude customer had morphed from a moment of discord into a rallying cry for respect, dignity, and community solidarity. The chef stood in the now quiet dining room, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and gratitude. He had faced a daunting challenge, yet the outcome had transcended his expectations. Reflecting on the events that had unfolded, he understood that this was not merely about one individual's disrespectful behavior. It was a microcosm of the larger societal issues that plagued communities everywhere. Discrimination in all its forms, whether rooted in race, gender, or any other aspect of identity, had long been a stain on the fabric of society. However, the power to combat this injustice resided in the hands of individuals willing to stand up and speak out. The chef recalled the expressions of support from the patrons who had witnessed the confrontation. Many had shared their own experiences of discrimination, recalling moments where they, too, felt marginalized or dismissed. Those stories resonated deeply with him. It became clear that every individual has a role to play in creating a more inclusive and respectful environment. This experience illuminated the importance of listening to one another, amplifying marginalized voices, and fostering understanding among diverse groups. As he cleaned the last remnants of the evening, he reflected on the customers who had rallied around him. They were more than just patrons. They were allies in the fight against discrimination. The evening had been a powerful reminder that when people come together to stand against injustice, their collective voice can echo far beyond the walls of a single restaurant. He thought about the importance of addressing discrimination head-on. Silence, he realized, often perpetuated the cycle of disrespect. It was crucial to not only confront those who acted out of malice but to create an environment where discussions around respect and dignity were normalized. The moment had served as a wake-up call, not just for him but for everyone present. It was a call to action, a reminder that each individual has the power to affect change within their community. As he prepared to lock up for the night, the chef formulated a plan to harness the energy of this experience and turn it into something tangible. He envisioned hosting community workshops focused on diversity and inclusion, where individuals could come together to share their experiences and learn from one another. He wanted to create an ongoing dialogue about respect, ensuring that everyone understood their role in fostering a welcoming environment. Let's take this experience and turn it into something meaningful, he thought. It was essential to ensure that the lessons learned from this night would not fade into the background. Instead, he aimed to keep the conversation alive, inviting people to reflect on their actions and encouraging them to speak out against discrimination whenever they witnessed it. In his heart, he knew that change could not happen overnight, but it was the small, consistent actions of individuals that would ultimately lead to a shift in societal norms. He wanted to encourage everyone who had witnessed the events of the night to share their stories and stand united against discrimination. If we can all take a stand in our own lives, even in the smallest ways, we can create a ripple effect that reaches far beyond our immediate community, he mused. As he turned off the lights and locked the door, the chef felt a sense of responsibility wash over him. The events of the night had illuminated a path forward, one that required bravery, resilience, and commitment to change. He realized that his restaurant could serve as a beacon of hope, a place where respect was not just expected but celebrated. He also understood the significance of social media in amplifying these messages. I need to encourage my patrons to share their experiences online, he thought. Together, we can create a platform where individuals feel empowered to speak out and support one another. He envisioned social media campaigns highlighting stories of resilience and courage, encouraging people to stand up against discrimination in their communities. As he prepared to leave, he felt compelled to reach out to his viewers, inviting them to join him in this endeavor. He envisioned a call to action. If you've experienced or witnessed discrimination, I urge you to share your story. Let's create a community where respect is paramount and everyone feels valued. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel to join the conversation. Your voice matters. The chef recognized that every individual's story was unique, yet they all shared a common thread: the need for respect and dignity. By encouraging people to share their experiences, he hoped to foster a sense of community that transcended individual differences. Each story had the power to inspire, educate, and encourage others to take action. As he stepped outside into the cool night air, he took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The weight of the events had transformed into a commitment to change. He was determined to not only stand up for himself but to advocate for others who had been silenced or marginalized. The restaurant, once a simple establishment focused on serving good food, had evolved into a platform for change. It became a space where conversations about respect and inclusion could thrive, and where individuals could come together to share their stories and support one another. As he walked home, the chef envisioned the future, a future where everyone, regardless of their background, felt valued and respected. He pictured workshops filled with laughter and learning, discussions about diversity, and an engaged community willing to stand up against injustice. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to embrace it wholeheartedly. The events of that night had sparked a fire within him, a fire that he would carry forward as a beacon of hope for all those who walked through the doors of his restaurant. In his heart, he believed that every individual could make a difference. The chef's commitment to standing up against discrimination was not just about his own experience, it was about fostering a culture of respect and dignity that could resonate far beyond the walls of his restaurant. He envisioned a community where kindness prevailed over cruelty, where individuals embraced their differences and celebrated the richness of diversity. It was a vision worth fighting for, and he was ready to lead the charge. As he prepared to share this journey with his viewers, he felt a sense of excitement bubbling within him. He envisioned the stories that would be shared, the connections that would be forged, and the positive changes that could emerge. The chef knew that together, they could create a movement dedicated to standing up against discrimination, one story at a time. The power of storytelling, he realized, could be transformative. It had the ability to break down barriers, foster understanding, and inspire individuals to take action. Each story shared would serve as a reminder that respect was not merely an ideal but a practice that everyone could engage in daily. With each step he took towards home, the chef's resolve strengthened. He would use his platform to champion the cause of respect and dignity, inviting others to join him on this journey. Together, we can make a difference, he thought, knowing that this was just the beginning of a much larger movement. As he unlocked his front door, he felt a renewed sense of purpose enveloping him. The events of the night had been a turning point, a moment that had illuminated the path ahead. He was ready to embrace the challenges, armed with the support of a community united against discrimination. In that moment, he realized that he was not alone. He had the backing of every individual who had stood up for what was right. The chef had discovered the power of community, and he would carry that lesson with him as he moved forward, determined to make a lasting impact, not just for himself, but for everyone seeking respect, dignity, and understanding. As we wrap up this powerful story, we want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to stand up against discrimination? Your voice matters, and together, we can create a community that promotes respect and understanding. If you found inspiration in tonight's events, please like this video to show your support for standing up against injustice. Share it with your friends and family to spread the message far and wide. Because the more we talk about respect, the more change we can create. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an inspiring story. Join us as we continue to explore themes of dignity, resilience, and community. Your engagement helps us grow this movement and uplift voices that need to be heard. Together, let's make a difference, one story at a time.